All right, East Lyme Board of Finance special meeting, March 30th. Call to order. Let's stand, those who are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is delegations. Any members of the public wish to come to the microphone and speak? Okay. Next up is new business. For this special meeting, we have budget reviews from Fire Service, IT, and Capital Projects. First up is Fire Service.
Good evening. My name is William Bundy. I'm Fire Chief for the East Lyme Fire Service. I put together a little slide deck to kind of like tee up the discussion regarding our budget. So if Kevin would be so kind as to and this obviously is available for each of you, so I'm not going to bore you by reading all of it, but it's just a little message of what we've done over the last, a little bit of what we've done over the last year, somewhat of our mission. Next. A little breakdown of what our stations entail. We have Niantic headquarters over at 8 Grand Street, 2 buildings, and circa 1923 and 1957 respectfully. Niantic Station 2 over by Rocky Neck, 227 West Main Street, built in 1976. And Station 3, which is our Flanders station over on Boston Post Road, built in 1979. Next slide. Breakdown of our fleet. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 engines. Those are our pumpers that are stationed throughout the districts. Ladder company, the one highlighted is one that I purposefully highlighted because in capital, that's what we're looking to refurb in the upcoming year. That's a 2005 ladder truck. We're looking to do a refurbish on that rather than replacement. The refurb is going to cost us a little over $500,000, which should give us another 10 years of service. Anything that is 15 years or better per NFPA standards needs to go through. They say it meets its life expectancy. And clearly we are well beyond that. A new ladder truck, which would run probably 2 to 3 years if we were to order it today to take delivery, would run probably close upper 2 point something million, maybe approaching 3 million by the time we were to get to that. So that's why we're looking to refurb it now to try to save some costs and get some more life out of it. Next slide. A little continuation of our support vehicles, a couple of admin vehicles, boats, forestry equipment. Next slide. Breakdown of our fire district. We have 34 square miles of land, 8 square miles of water, which we are responsible for. Next slide, Kevin. Currently, we have our full-time firefighters work a 24/48 schedule, which is, and it incorporates what they call a Kelly day, meaning if our work schedule goes from Sunday through Saturday. Sunday is the first day of the week. If you were to work on that first day Sunday, you would have Monday, Tuesday off. You would then be required to work on Wednesday. You would have Thursday, Friday off, and then you'd be scheduled to work on Saturday. Saturday being a Kelly day, that is built in based on the collective bargaining agreement to be a day off. So essentially every Saturday, and I think this is an important thing to illustrate when it comes time for the budget, every Saturday is an overtime day for the firefighters that are on staff. We have 2 full-time firefighters that work a 24/7 schedule at Station 1, which is on Grand Street, and we have 2 full-time firefighter EMTs over in the Flanders house. Company 2 up over by Rocky Neck is not staffed with any full-time firefighters. We do have a small allotment, and we're currently recruiting and trying to hire additional part-time firefighters, which we fill during the week as we can. And they typically work either a day shift, which would be like 8 to 4, or a 4 to 10 shift. But that's not definite. 2 of the 12 firefighters that we have are currently on military deployment. One was due, and I say was, given the light of what's going on in the world, was due to come back sometime in the summer, which I don't anticipate will happen. The other one is on deployment through the fall, October, November, and we currently have one on workers' not compensation, but rather FMLA. So currently we are operating in the field of those 12 with really 8 firefighters filling those spots. I always get asked about the status of the volunteers. Here's a breakdown going back through the last 12 years, and this is based on the numbers that were provided. In 2014, you had 84, and I'm going to use the term active. Active meaning that they could actually suit up, respond to a call, and assist in some sort of an emergency. And as you can see over the years, it has dwindled down to 1. Within the last year to present, I haven't had a volunteer respond to an emergency yet. So that number is at a 0. Next slide. I've attached some data on the census survey that was sent out by the Connecticut State Fire Academy through the Office of the Comptroller. This is not the volunteering is not a problem unique to East Lyme. This is a systemic problem across the country. This affects every municipality here in the state. The state of Connecticut interviewed and did a survey of all of the fire departments in the state regarding the status, and in the next couple of slides you'll see what some of the results were. Of the 169 towns, there are 154 that have a volunteer department, or a volunteer of some sort, meaning a combination department, which would incorporate, in addition to the volunteers, have some sort of a paid on-call system. 66 municipalities have both, and all of the states, or all of the towns that participated, 15 municipalities are exclusively full-time. Next. If you look at the second bullet, I think that's the one that jumps out. The Office of the State Comptroller of this survey found that the number of firefighters in Connecticut has increased by 50%, with an alarming 62% of that amongst the volunteers. Where before, your paid staff was essentially created to supplement the volunteers historically. It is now, I think we've kind of passed it, and it's gone polar opposite, where right now you are relying exclusively on a paid staff to provide your EMS and your fire service. Next slide. A little bit more of the data of actual numbers of firefighters throughout the state. And I think what it's showing is that the trend is going in a downward spiral with volunteers across not only the country, but here exclusively in the state. Next. I provided some of the articles and some of the references throughout the country. Most recently in 2026, where there was this was put out, where we're losing firefighters at an astronomical rate. And I didn't attach the entire articles, but these will give you, and I certainly can provide them for you. And again, this is, I think, just to illustrate that the fire service is struggling everywhere. While I tell you that, I show you the next couple slides will show you where the call volumes are going. So as the numbers are decreasing, adversely, the calls for services are increasing tremendously. We've gone back all the way to 2009, where during a calendar year, we would have responded to almost 2,000 calls for service. In 2023, and this is last year's slide, and the next slide will bring you up to date. We're up around 3,500 in 2023. Next slide. Based on the trajectory, I did some predictions, and this is again from last year's presentation. I predicted that this year in 2025, we would have hit a 3644. I was wrong. We actually, for the year of 2025, we had 3,756 calls for service. We actually overshot what we predicted. And then it just goes to show you where the trend is continuing to go. Next slide. I broke it down in terms of what we respond to from July of 24 through June of 25, the 3756, that's what we've gone to. And granted, probably 75, 80% of those calls for service are rescue or EMS related, and then get the breakdown of all the others. And this presentation, the numbers on the right are reflected as of the Board of Selectmen presentation that I did for them. So those numbers are a little bit higher. We probably got 3 weeks of data that are not there. But as you can see, we're probably about 2,000. So we're a little bit more than half of what we did last year, currently, in this year. Next slide. This is going back to 2003. This is a graph that depicts your hiring of paid staff. We were at 6 in 2003. You went 13, almost 14 years without adding anybody. And then I think that was 2018, we went up to 9. Then we went to 10. And then we went up to just 11. And now currently we are at 12. So I think this illustrates that we have not kept up with the demand of the calls for service. And I'll get into some of the requirements of where we should be based on OSHA and NFPA. Some of the highlights of what we've done throughout the year. And I think this is important because I imagine one of the questions will be, with our increase, what are we looking to get? Well, Thanksgiving Day, this particular family with 4 firefighters on the road called for a woman having a medical event. The woman was in cardiac arrest. And because of a couple of the guys sitting here, I took a text message from the husband of this woman with a picture of her sitting in bed enjoying Thanksgiving because of their efforts. A couple weeks later, on Main Street by the theater, another woman experienced cardiac arrest. And our guys were there prior to the ambulance services performing life-saving measures, and we have another save. Maternity call. These guys were responsible for assisting with a home birth over down by Rocky Neck's Village. The last one there, and I think this will bring it all together, a structure fire. Now, if I go back to the staffing, there's only 4 full-time guys working, 24 hours. 2 here and 2 here, and this is what we're doing. On March 17th, at little after 1 in the morning, 1 a.m., you would think people are home, traffic's light. This would be if we had to pick a time, this is what we're going to have our best response. Get called for a structure fire, house fire, at 1:04 in the morning. Station 3, which is the Flanders company, 2 minutes later is on the radio, on the air responding. Another 2 minutes later, the ladder truck from Niantic. So now you have a total of 4 firefighters responding to a working structure fire. They arrive at 1:13, the first truck. You have 2 firefighters that get there 9 minutes later, literally driving by an empty firehouse. The first captain on the scene reports that working house fire, and that which automatically initiates an Everbridge for a callback. So now we're calling back additional resources from our staff. The engine from Flanders arrives there at 1:16, 12 minutes later. So now you have a total of 4 firefighters. And by NFPA standards, and I'll show you the actual standard in the next couple of slides, that's the minimum requirement for firefighter to do any sort of fire suppression or any hazardous suppression. They call it the 2 in, 2 out rule. So you took 12 minutes when people were home, sleeping in their beds, no traffic, to get 4 fires hit so they could actually effectively, and I'm going to use the term legally, do their firefighting activity. A couple minutes later, the captain requests mutual aid because it's not enough. We get an engine from Waterford that's on the air at 1:23. 19 minutes later, 4 firefighters are en route, and then we get a total of 8 firefighters with the 4 from Waterford, because that's the other thing I've been told. We can rely on our mutual aid partners. That's our mutual aid helping us. They're about as strapped as we are. Captain requests a second alarm, which will now initiate another all-call from war, and we get more responses. We call for Old Saybrook. They send what they call a RIT, which is a rapid intervention team, because by standard, when you've got firefighters working inside a working structure fire, there needs to be crew on the outside ready to go in to effect a rescue in the event one of those firefighters. That's their firefighters at 1:33. At the 30-minute mark of the event, we had we can account for over 8 firefighters there, more than 10 firefighters on scene. And I say that because in the next slide, oh no, actually the next slide, it'll be the next slide after that, but go to the one you were just at. The captain is still asking for resources. We're asking for resources from Montville, mutual aid company, unable to provide. We asked for Waterford again, who've already committed a crew, unable to provide. And at 2:14, a little over an hour after the initial event, we get another emergency where a tree fell through a house. We're pretty strapped at this point. Next slide. There's your 2 in and 2 out. The standard establishes that within 10 minutes of an event, you need to have 10 firefighters on scene. And what I just say, it took us 30 minutes to do that. So what are you going to get for an increase of our staffing? We're going to become compliant, which has a direct correlation to the ISO rating for homeowners insurance. Next slide. I threw some distances in there. Nyack headquarters, where you have 2 firefighters stationed, is 3 miles from 124 Old Black Point, which is where that house fire was. And on average, and this is taken from MapQuest, not taking into consideration the time of day or traffic, it's just an average. It takes 10 to 13 minutes, and granted, they're not responding lights emergency. That's just to kind of give you a rough gauge. Driving past an empty firehouse. Flanders is 8 miles, 21 to 23 minutes, driving past an empty firehouse. And the distance from Station 2 is 3 miles. Had that station been staffed appropriately and effectively, you could have cut that response time down to have a working, legal crew. 8 minutes. Next slide. I did this because the questions I keep getting is, this is going to cost us, this costs us, this costs us. Well, what about part-timers? What about volunteers? If we can figure that out here, and I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I mean it, if we can figure out the answers to those questions, I would suggest we bottle it and we sell it, because nobody seems to be able to do that. This is what your system is designed to do, to be fully operational. When I came here in 2023, I was asked to put together a strategic plan, if you would. And I looked at the recommendations from the plan and the study that you folks had done. I think it was back in the mid-2000s. The plan has always been to try to get the department at 18 firefighters. That's a shift, that's 3 shifts of 6, 2, 2, and 2. That way, everybody is covered. Currently, with the bridge construction, and this is going to factor into a lot of the overtime question, with that type of construction, 95 literally cuts the town in half for us. Because on a fire response that you just saw, the minimum response you're going to get is an engine and a ladder truck. When you only have 2 guys here, yet there's a ladder and an engine, and you have a ladder and an engine at Flanders. but you only have 2 people. So theoretically, you can't get both of those pieces out from the same building. So what do? You take one from here, you take one from there, and you respond. Well, with the highway being the way it is, that bridge construction has literally made it impassable at times for us to get a fire truck. I can show you a text message I took from the contractor this morning. That road will be shut again for the overnight. So what do? We double up. If we had a full staff, we could actually, that staff at the Rocky Neck and up by Rocky Neck has the ability to go either way, but we don't have that. So we are operating behind the 8 ball. So with that, I'm sure now we can get into the budget, and you can ask all the questions, and I'll do my best to try to answer them for you.
Thanks, Chief. Really appreciate it. Maybe I'll start off from a historical perspective. Many of us probably weren't around, but I'm curious about the no hires between 2004 and 2017. Can you explain how that happened?
I can't, because I was hired in 2023. When I walked in, I asked the same question.
Yeah,
Because proportionally, you have not kept up with the times. We're in that, and I use the term the condiment stage. We're catching up. We're playing catch up.
I have 2 more questions. Thanks. That is a surprising fact that you described. Volunteers. You said this is a nationwide problem, and I appreciate that. Anything you think of that can be done to, locally at least, to increase the participation of volunteers?
Well, there are a few things that we've been trying to work on. We literally last week had a meeting at the high school. Now, the high school has a very robust program with regards to EMS. I met with Mary Toronto and the principal and one of the other advisors, along with a couple of the guys. We're looking to do a similar program with the students there on the fire side to try to generate that. That's not going to solve our problem initially, because in order to do that, there's got to be the training. We're looking to recruit that next generation. But what's historically happening is that any sort of a recruitment program is getting people certified to a certain level, and then they're moving on to a paid department. And the problem with going to a paid department, and as much as I support our paid staff, there are legalities amongst the locals with regards to collective bargaining and career, where if you're working in a career department elsewhere, it's, depending on where you are, it becomes frowned upon that you volunteer. In fact, it becomes a violation of some of the bylaws of some of these local organizations. So I know the town has a tax abatement or an incentive program for that. That would be something that I would look, or I would suggest that the town continue to explore. I think from what you hear, the demands on a volunteer become very difficult while managing life. They're held to the same standards, the same, professional requirements as somebody who's doing it for a living. That's why I don't use the term professional, because the volunteers are professional as well. They're doing it for less compensation, or no compensation in most cases. So I don't know how to incentivize that, other than what we're already doing. I think there needs to be some changes, perhaps some changes within the standards that give the ability for volunteers to maybe do different things. But while the way it is set up at currently, they're bound by the same rules and requirements of any other career firefighter.
Okay. Thank you. My last question is, so if I've got the numbers right, you've got requests for 3 new firefighters?
Well, out of complete transparency, I asked initially for 6 to bring it where we should be.
Are there training courses from which you can draw these new firefighters? And is it possible to truly hire them if you get budgeted for them?
Well, that's a great question, because there are some options. I mean, ideally, we would be looking for applicants who already have the certification. You know, I hate to say it, but steal from those volunteer departments. There are other firefighters, I mean, we're in the same boat as every other municipality around here.
Right.
And you know, we're facing our backs against the wall with supply and demand. There's a lot of holes, and there's only so many plugs to fill them with. So we'd be competing with other agencies, you know, going after the part-timers now of other towns. But to your question, I haven't done a cost analysis of it, but there is an option of hiring somebody off the street and sending them to the Connecticut Fire Academy. They go there just like we send the police officers. They go there, they attend, and at the end of 16 weeks, they come out and they're fully certified. So there is an option for that. Unfortunately, I just haven't looked at the numbers, what the cost would be to do that. My initial thought would be to take people who are already certified and, you know, kind of do an in-service, you know, in-house training and get them brought up to speed to the way East Lyme does things, you know, learning the districts, the equipment and things of that nature.
So somebody who's fully certified as a volunteer, certified as a part-timer someplace else?
Not certified, this is the certifications that they have. We would be looking for somebody has a firefighter 2. You have firefighter 1, which is the entry, to, you know, and again, we're falling back onto what the collective bargaining goes by. You know, to be a full-time firefighter within the town, you need to have a fire 2. So it's somebody who would have that certification. And EMT, somebody who's got that certification already, whether they're a volunteer or they work at, you know, a Pfizer or Millstone at one of these fire brigades.
And these 16-week training programs you mentioned?
I'm guessing, and again, don't quote me on the exact time frame, but there are schedules that the academy puts out.
They're always churning them out.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right, thanks. Other members' questions? Lauren?
My two were about volunteers and hiring, so you covered them.
I would like to say, we have pulled from within, a couple of our last hires were volunteers here. They grew up in the programs, they were already here, and that's why I'd like to focus a little bit of effort at the high school to try to get the people who have a vested interest in the town. These are the people who have grown up here, they know people who are here, may have already had relatives here, but to your point, we've already hired full-time firefighters from the past volunteer ranks, and I think that's how those numbers, you know, that's part of why some of those numbers are dwindling.
Thank you. Kim?
Chief, thank you for your presentation, and I am in my rookie year of serving on the Board of Finance, so some of my questions are really just for my own education, and I appreciate you helping me along with that. So my first question, and I was trying to go as fast as I could when you were presenting, but could you give me the number of engines that we have versus the number of staff that you have? I'm kind of looking for a ratio between staff and engines.
Bear with me, I
That's
gotta
okay.
find that.
And I'm sorry, maybe, I don't know if the slide deck could be pulled up. Okay.
You pull up the slide deck?
So it's like 5 engines, 2 ladders, and a rescue?
That's about right. We have an engine, its call is B11 at headquarters. We have a engine 2, which is over in Flanders. Engine 3, which is at headquarters, so you have 2 at headquarters, 1 in Flanders. You have a second one at Flanders, so 2 and 2. Oh, no, yeah, and then you have 1 at Station 3, so 2, and 1.
So 5 engines.
5 engines.
And then.
2 ladder trucks and 1 rescue.
And 1 rescue. And if you did not have people deployed and on FMLA, we would have a total of how many firefighters?
We would have 12 firefighters but only 4 because of the schedule. There are 4 on every day. And we run 3 shifts. We run an A, B, and C shift. So each day, we put 4 on. So
Between the two.
between the 2.
locations.
So you have 2 that are physically located at headquarters, and then you have 2 that are physically located in Boston Post Road.
And we have 5 engines and 1 rescue. So
Correct.
we basically have more vehicles than we have staff on at any one time.
Correct.
Okay. And is that typical?
It is because I think it's always the hope that there would be volunteers that would be able to respond to the station and take vehicles to come out to a scene and assist. We have one that's up at Rocky Neck, up at Station 2, that when we do have the ability to put staff in there, that's what they respond to. In addition, as vehicles go down due to maintenance, and when I say go down, they become taken out of service so you have something to put in its place so that you're not losing there's no gap or break in service or for response.
Okay. And so in this, and I'm sorry I'm in the weeds, but I'm really trying to learn this. So we've got 2 firefighters in 2 locations. And so the concept would be that they would each hop in an engine and go to
Depending on
whatever
the emergency. So,
okay.
and I'll go back to the old Black Point. So that's
Sure.
a fire.
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. So you have, that's going to require right off the initial tone out, a response of an engine and a truck, a ladder, an aerial device.
Yeah.
So you will take the ladder truck, the closest ladder in the district. In this case, it would be the one at headquarters. So 2 of the firefighters would get in that, and then the 2 firefighters over in Flanders would get in the engine there, and they would respond. If it were, say, a brush fire, it wouldn't require a ladder. The 2 firefighters would get into the brush truck, which is designed for wildland and brush fire suppression, and then you get the other 2 firefighters to come in an engine to establish a water supply.
Okay.
If you had a motor vehicle accident, whether it be up on the highway or anywhere in town, you would get 2 firefighters getting in the rescue that's located in Flanders, and then you would get headquarters would leave with an engine and it's got support, specialty equipment that's on there that would be utilized in the event that they need it. So that's why there's always a vehicle we have more vehicles than we have staff, because we have to adapt to whatever the incident is. There's not an all-in-one encompassing vehicle that we can utilize.
Okay. And in the world of fire service and benchmarking, how do you know you have the right number of engines or the right number of ladder trucks? Is it done by mileage, like square number of acres? Is it done by population?
That's actually a great question. When I came here in 2023, you actually had more vehicles than what we currently have here. And I think maybe, and I don't want to assume what you're trying to, maybe trying to get to the answer or the bottom to, we may have had more vehicles than we needed. And so we started to consolidate and we started to downsize. And I think we were trying to look at the return on any investments, the cost effectiveness and things like that. I think where we are currently, based on industry, and I always fall back on industry standard,
Yeah.
I think we are currently at where we need to be in terms of a fleet. Now, is there a set benchmark for how many ladder trucks a municipality has? I'm sure there is somewhere, but I look at it from a practical operational look through the lens of that. A town of this size, you have essentially two districts.
Mm-hmm.
You have a ladder in one district, you have a ladder in another district, and it's all about the response time, as I mentioned before. You could try to convince me that we need to consolidate and get rid of a ladder, and I'm going to argue that point because driving 20 minutes from one side of town to the other during what they're undergoing with traffic and things like that is not in the best interest of the operation. It's not in the best interest of the people who live on the opposite side of town. So, I don't know if I'm answering your question,
Yeah, you
but
are.
I think in terms of the fleet, and I did catch some heat, no pun intended, when we started downsizing and consolidating. You know, we're getting rid of this, we're getting rid of that. But each vehicle has a seated position in it. It's like a ladder truck. You've got 2 in the front, you got 4 in the back. It's got room for 6 people. If we could fill 6 seats, I'm all for it, but you're not at this point. So I think what you have currently at your fleet, we start looking at the mileage of them. And that's why I'm asking for the refurb on it, because if that truck goes down, you're down to 1 ladder truck. And realistically, you're looking at $3 million. And Congress is actually looking at doing hearings because of them. They're accusing the 3 manufacturers that build and make fire trucks of there's monopoly issues and things like that. And you're talking $100,000 just for a motor sitting on a pallet before they even put it in the truck. The turnaround times are outrageous. The cost of these vehicles are outrageous. So, and I know we can't afford a $3 million fire truck right now. So, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. So.
Okay, thank you. So I did have a question. I know in the EMS world, there's mutual aid, mutual assist. And I heard in your description on the structure fire that there were calls put out to the other towns for assistance. Could you just clarify for me or help me understand what we have in place for mutual aid, mutual assist for EMS, and what we have similarly for fire?
We have, through our dispatch, we have what they call the run card. So every call that we can think of, we've established an operational plan for that particular event, whether it's a house fire, a brush fire, a car accident, medical emergency. And we have agreements with our mutual aid towns around us. So like with EMS, we're currently operating with an ambulance 24/7 located at Station 2, which is the Rocky Neck Village. And then you have a second ambulance out at Flanders that operates from in the morning till 10 at night, and then so you're back to 1. If there is and we do get simultaneous calls back to back to back. The moment that we get to a point that we've exhausted the current resources, it automatically goes out to a tone out for mutual aid. And it's going to be depending on what district you're in. If you're up in the north end, you might get an ambulance out of Chesterfield, Montville. More often than not, we're relying on Waterford because it's a paid service. We know that there are people there, and we reciprocate. If needed, we send our people over there as well. Same holds true for the fire side. And I've met with the area chiefs. We kind of have that understanding, and I actually we actually had a meeting last week with the captains. We were doing an after action on the old Black Point, and it's like, okay, how did this work? Okay, next time we might need to ask you for this, we might need to ask you for that. But that's already baked into the dispatch. So as soon as you get an initial response, whether it's a car accident, car fire, whatever the incident, dispatch has the resources that they're initially sending out right off the initial rep. We're relying on our officer on the scene, and that's why I put it up there. The captain on the scene, this is more than the 4 of us can handle. Let's do a callback. That initiates a callback internally, and then dispatch has a list of what the next departments are if he were to say, start me mutual aid, a second alarm. As soon as they do that, we've already said we're going to take an engine from Waterford, we're going to take a tanker from Old Lyme, we might take an ambulance from over here, and it's all based on the geographical location of that. So it's already baked into the to dispatch.
Okay, so thank you for that. I guess I'm looking for just contractual arrangements in which towns we have mutual aid set up for EMS and for fire.
I can't speak to the EMS because they're a separate entity.
Okay.
I do know that when we did have it under our control, it's all through a service agreement. We have a mutual aid contract through New London County Fire Chiefs Association, and then basically I hate to say it's a handshake, but it's an agreement with our neighboring towns and our neighboring departments that at the chief level, we're going to say, like, I took a phone call from the New London chief, hey, if we get to a point that we're going to a third alarm, what resource can you send us? Well, I can send you an engine with 3 guys. Okay, and then they put that in their dispatch. So it's not literally a written contract, but it's an agreement through the county association that we run these.
Okay. My next question, and I don't know if it's possible to put it back on the screen. You had volumes for the different types of calls that you respond to. And I couldn't write the numbers down fast enough, but I believe the EMS calls were I would say probably the majority of the calls. So as a non-firefighter, when I look at those numbers, I look at that and go, are we transforming our fire service enough? I understand most firefighters have EMS skills, right, as part of...
Every firefighter, prior to 2024, I think, is when the agreement went into play. Does that sound right, Dan? Kevin?
Yep.
Prior to 2024, your paid staff was literally running and staffing the East Lyme Ambulance Fund. Every one of them is a basic EMT, has the ability to drive an ambulance, sit in the back of the ambulance, do everything that it
BLS, ALS?
we're not licensed for ALS. We do have 2 paramedics on staff as part of our group, but when they're responding, they respond as a BLS capacity. The PSA, the Primary Service Agreement, is held by the East Lyme Ambulance Fund. Although it's the town's responsibility through the service agreement, the PSA is for that is through the East Lyme Ambulance Fund. The East Lyme Fire Service, which is what we are the PSA holder for the R1 license. That's the first responder license. So and I don't know if this is where you're going, but I'm going to bring you there. If you get let's say the ambulance is going to go to York Prison for whatever medical event. They go, they're treating, and now they're transporting to Lawrence. While that is going on, you might get Broadbrook Rehab has now a medical event. We're sending the second ambulance. Well, while that's going on, if it's an ALS call that's elicited a response from the medic, L&M medic, we're sending a firefighter and an engine, or 2 firefighters and an engine, who are, those are those cases, they're the ones who sometimes are getting there first because the ambulances are tied up. So they have all the equipment that the ambulance does. They'll basically do everything that the ambulance people do except put them in the fire truck and drive them to the hospital.
Sure.
And there are times that we would have to call mutual aid ambulance to do that transport. So to answer that question, are we transforming it? I think we're already there. We're basically doing that service, and every one of them are certified and qualified and trained to that level.
At a majority of the calls.
At a majority. These are all the calls that we respond to. Every
Sure.
one of these calls. So, the EMS, the 2,760 calls, that's a response from at least 2, maybe more in some cases, of the firefighters going to those.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at rescue EMS at almost 1,500 and fire at, I think it's 19, that says to me that you're more in the business of rescue and medical care than
It's like it's
fire. But
70-30.
you have to be prepared
Right.
all the time
Right.
for fire.
Right.
But that most of what you do on a daily basis is more medical in nature, medical
70,
rescue
70,
response.
70% of the calls, and again, I think that's a rough number, but
Okay.
Yep.
And then my last question, I'm sure people are sick of me, is you had mentioned something that I was not aware of. I think you said it was the iOS rating. for-
ISO.
ISO. Do you know what East Lyme's current
And
ISO
I tried to
rating is?
research it. I do not know what it is, and
Okay.
in fact, I did not. And I tried to find it for tonight, anticipating that.
Yeah.
And again, there's a mathematical formula that you have to go through, and it goes partly to the nearest water supply, close your vicinity to, and the staffing and whatnot. But I do know for a fact that the 10 firefighters in 10 minutes is part of that. and we're not meeting that.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the question I had.
Thank you, Kim. Sandra?
Sure. I'm also new to the Board of Finance, so this is all an education to me, and I thank you very much for all of the questions and the answers that you're giving us. I want to make a comment, and then I just have one question. I live in the North End, and I can't imagine how a fire engine can get from Flanders down to Black Point when that 161 is closed. I don't even know how you'd go. I have a difficult time when I'm leaving here sometime and they close down around 8 o'clock and I have to go up by Noble and get home. So I know how difficult that is. My other question is, I do see that you budgeted for volunteer expenses. So is that hoping that you will get some volunteers?
The initial intent, and that came in from last year's budget as well as a carryover,
Yep.
was that when we consolidated, we assumed the whole budget. I think the intent was to give them a bucket of money,
Right.
if you would, so that if they wanted to go out and try to do some recruitment, try to generate some interest from within, so that we wouldn't necessarily be stripping everything away.
Right.
But that was the intent for that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's all I have.
Rich?
Okay. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. I remember hearing you say that you had, in full transparency, asked for 6, have received 3, and it sounds like the multiple of 3 is what we're being tasked with. If you don't get a multiple of 3 new firefighters or EMS folks, since 70% is EMS, how would you distribute them between the stations?
The schedule is set by collective bargaining, so essentially, let's just say you gave me one shift's going to have 4 and the other are going to still have 3. I mean, one shift will have 5 and the other 2 will have 4. It really, because I was asked that question on the Board of Selectmen, and it was, well, can't you put that one person at Station 2? Collective, firefighters don't work alone, and so we're not creating a crew at that point, per the collective bargaining. So I don't know that one. I don't want to say it doesn't help us. It's not effective, I guess is the best way for me to explain that, because you're right. It would be lots of 3, because by having a 3, now you have the ability to at least cover one on each shift. So now we've stacked the shift. Only one, you're only stacking one shift. But what have you gained? You've gained one body, but it doesn't help with the reduction of overtime.
Okay. And so with the different shifts, or with the timing of activity, do you see peak activity at certain times of the day or night?
I get asked that all the time, and I would say there are probably more times where we do have calls, but the call I just showed you was at 1 in the morning. So, and then within an hour we had another major event. So there's really no predictability of when these occur. You can look at it, and then you can try to staff accordingly, but you might as well go to the casino and pick red or black at that point.
Right.
Right.
Thank you. And then in terms of the staffing, we have down a fire chief, fire marshal, which is yourself. And then do we currently have a deputy fire chief and deputy fire marshal, or is that empty right now?
Another great point, and I can provide some clarity on that. Last year, we actually had a fire chief, fire marshal, deputy fire chief, deputy fire marshal. We kind of moved from that model. We eliminated the deputy fire chief position, and we created the 3 shift captains, so that way there's an actual supervisor on each shift. So there's no deputy fire chief. We do have a deputy fire marshal. in the event that, and again, it's totally separate from the fire side of it. And then we do have we have two fire inspectors. Two fire inspectors that go out and they're strictly code enforcement inspections, fire investigation, having nothing to do with operations.
Right.
And the deputy fire marshal doesn't either.
Right, right. And so the differential for the three captains, does that equal what the deputy fire chief was?
Basically, and I got another great question. And I use the term the bucket of money that was allotted for the deputy fire chief. We took that bucket of money and we basically reallocated it to amongst the three fire captains and the deputy fire marshal.
Oh, okay.
So that last year's line item of deputy fire chief, fire marshal, whatever that dollar figure was reallocated amongst four different people.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then for the determination of the three captains, was that based on an examination?
Yep,
Or,
we held a process, not a written, I put together a panel from outside area chiefs who came in. They did an independent oral board, and they provided us with what they determined was a list and not a seniority list, but a hiring list or a ranking, if you would.
Right.
And I think there were like five eligible based on the qualifications that we set forth, and we took the top three.
Right.
So I stayed out of it. So I let the area chiefs. There was a full-time paid fire chief. There was an actual combination fire chief, and I brought in a volunteer fire chief from neighboring towns. So that way, we had, it was all lenses were covered.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Since we've got a couple of our members that are deployed currently, this may sound really wackadoodle, but I don't know if there's any possibility to elicit support from the National Guard that's based in town to help support some of our fire services in situations like that.
You mean in terms of a response?
Or in
not sure I
terms
follow.
in terms of their service being applied to municipal service, has that ever been bounced around? Because I'm sure that our fire department's not unique in that
Yeah.
we have members that get deployed.
I honestly don't know. I've never heard that brought up before. Certainly, I could look into that. I don't. The answer is I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I've never heard that as an option.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you, and thank you and your department for the service you provide.
very welcome.
Barry Sheckley, one of our board members, is calling in on Zoom. Barry, do you have questions?
Hey, let me just figure out, did I unmute that okay? Can you hear me?
We hear you, Barry.
Okay, good. This technology is wonderful, isn't it? Anyway, Chief, thanks a lot for your presentation, and also thank you and all members of your department for everything you do for the town. It's your tale of your presentation on the rescues and fire outages that you worked at is really great. I have three questions. Back when you talked about the fleet equipment and you talked about the two boats, boat one and boat two, I remember, if I remember correctly, which is always not true these days, last year in the Capital Improvement Committee, we had an item for a rescue boat. Is that in the inventory now, or has that not been used?
That has not been used. That is in the process of being spec'd out and going out to bid. So that fleet, the Boat 1 1969, recently underwent an engine repair, but the boat that you're referencing from last year's capital is in current bid process as we speak to be spec'd out.
Is that that cost item included in this year's budget, or is it last year's budget?
That was in last year's
that you
budget.
pulled?
That's already been,
Okay.
has nothing to do with this year's budget.
Okay, all right. Got it, thank you. So it's trying to, on your, the specs we have here for continuing education, 5.7.300 and 5.8.900, roughly totals about $70,000. If you have about 18, or if you had like 18 or 19, 20 members, that comes out to be about, $3,500 per member for continuing education, and not just, looking at it that way from my perspective seems pretty high.
Well, actually, I would respectfully disagree with you on that. We are bound to maintain certain levels of certification, both in the fire side and within EMS. We're all required to undergo EMS refreshers. I can tell you that the average fire class runs anywhere from $750 to $1,000 per person to put somebody through a certification class. With regards to and the FMO, the fire marshal training is also in there. Both myself and the inspectors are mandated to keep up our CEUs. We're required to, every 3 years, accumulate 90 continuing education credits, so it's up 30 per year. And again, you're talking anywhere from $750 to $1,000 per class, and that's just to maintain your certification so that we can continue to do our job. So I know that's a high number. Unfortunately, that's the cost of what the classes are. We do have several instructors in-house that we're trying to do our own training. But like, for instance, hazmat training, we have to bring in an outside vendor to do that, and you're looking at anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 per person to amount that. And per the OSHA standards, we have to do OSHA. There's certain required training that we're required to do annually.
Is it just to rephrase that? So a lot. This is not like discretionary training on your part, but it's more like mandated OSHA
Correct.
compliance type of training.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much. That clarifies it. And I do understand how much those individual classes went in cost. And my last question, I'm trying to get a understanding of your budget increase. So last year in 2026, if the figures I have here are correct, it was like 2,452,000. And this year, with the Board of Selectmen proposed, it's 2,763,927. And on my sheet here, and Kevin, you might jump in on this. This listing is 19% increase, but my figures would indicate that it's only like 12%. So I'm trying to figure out, like on the sheet that you gave us, Kevin, why it's listing 19%. Whether it's actually 19% or 12% is the increase.
James, can you swap the screens for a second? Barry, can you see my screen? Maybe you can hear us though, still, right? Barry, can you hear me? Okay, we'll assume you can hear me. It looks like the calculation for the 19% was never moved over. It was calculated off the first selectman, or board of selectmen, I'm sorry, so we'll just drag it over. There's that 12% you're looking for. Just,
All right, thank you.
Excel's only as good as the weakest link, and that appears to be me.
I know. I was thinking here that, I'd made a mistake, I'm coming with 12%, and I always defer to you. You had 19%, and I was saying, what did I do wrong? But got it. Thank you. That's it for me.
All right, great. Any final questions? Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.
Next up, IT, Information Technology.
Good evening, everyone.
Dan, did you, I should have it. The last one has 1:40 today, is that good? 1:40 p.m. is the latest I have. I just got that one. I don't have any new ones from you yet. We're gonna call IT, we'll be right back.
He's got it in his pocket.
In my head, we're an hour ahead of schedule.
We're ahead.
In my head, I said we're an hour ahead of schedule, so. There we go. Okay, we're live.
Yeah.
You want to introduce yourself to the folks at home, please?
Sure. My name's Dan Cleary. I'm the IT director for the town of East Lyme.
Good go, Dan.
Thank you. All right, so this is just to give a little bit of an overview, sort of what the department faces, what we're looking to do, things that we're working on. We're, continually facing a very heavy pressure on the cybersecurity front. So that's become one of our primary drivers in all of our initiatives. As you've seen, towns around, you hear on the news almost every week, there's a town that pops up somewhere in the state or a neighboring state that's gotten hit. All of that with the understanding that we're under very tight budget constraints, so there's no frills here. I've worked really closely with Kevin and Dan to trim things down as much as we possibly can while keeping everybody safe and functional. So our IT budget strategy this year is cutting costs while maintaining operations. And you can go ahead.
Sorry, buddy.
And just to give you an idea of our service footprint, so we have 3 full-time IT employees. We support 250 users, 172 workstations, 45 servers, over 120 applications, and 32 distinct networks. One of my updates didn't come in here on the bottom. I apologize. It says with 34 departments there, that's supposed to be 34, and then later on you'll see 20. Those are supposed to be about 19. I was having a hard time getting an actual number of departments. But so, where if you look at everyone else in the town, you go to the department head, the director. That director is responsible for their department, everything that goes on within that department, and then they answer to the first selectman. I do that very similarly. I report to the first selectman, but in essence, I report to all 19 department heads. So when they have an IT initiative or their people are having trouble, I'm the go-to person. So for each of those departments, I'm their IT. We are their IT department for each of these individually. So it's a kind of a unique circumstance, and that's where it comes down to prioritizing things, because there's departments that are much more critical and time sensitive, police, public safety, dispatch, all very critical. We need high availability, rapid response. That involves us being on call 24/7. I get a call 2 in the morning from dispatch and somebody's on it. On top of handling all that equipment and all those users, you could stay on that one.
I'm just going to print it for him. I see him jotting down. Would it
Oh,
be easy
oh.
if you guys had a copy of this?
That's fine. I can need one.
I
Oh,
see a couple of yeses. Let me just print
Okay.
it real quick. Sorry.
My eyes are.
I should have done this for. My apologies. I should have did this for fire service as well. I'll print it before you guys leave. Sorry, Dan. Right back.
Okay, so with the 3 of us supporting all of that equipment, just from a day-to-day perspective, it eats up quite a bit of our time. On top of that, being faced with cybersecurity, compliance issues, procurement, which for some departments, just to give you some perspective, if they need to go out and buy, if you're in the maintenance department, you need to buy a set of tires for a truck. There's a few options, you shop around, but you can pretty much make that decision in 10, 15 minutes. For a lot of the technology pieces, we're looking at very starkly different circumstances. So you can have an option that costs $2,000 and an option that costs $200,000, and everything in between. So our procurement process takes through demoing endless amounts of software and hardware and that sort of thing, built into all of our other objects to find the right thing to buy at the right price point. Right? So we do take a lot of time in picking the right equipment, the right software, all with the finance in the background. Police, and it's also another unique kind of their own sort of own world, is public safety. So police and dispatch systems are require 100% on high availability. Those systems need to be up. They don't transition. We have plans when things go down to transitions to other towns. It's very regrettable when that happens. There's opportunity for calls to be lost. There's opportunities for response time to increase. So a lot of things can go wrong when their systems aren't running smoothly. change. So yeah, the reality is we're not a standalone department. We support every department in town, and we know in doing that we must be able to accomplish keeping everybody up and running day to day, preserve our public safety response, uptime, and after-hours support, and control cost by consolidating, standardizing, and prioritizing risk. So we spend money where the risk is the highest, and you'll see that reflected in the budget in certain places where we're spending more on antivirus, we're spending more on backups, we're spending more on anti-spam services. Those are where our numbers are going up because that's where our greatest risk is. We're not asking for any great expansion. This is just to keep things running kind of budget. We've pulled out a number of lower priority projects in that effort. And I work very closely with Kevin to try and make sure that we're weighing out our risk versus how much money that we're actually asking for. Switch gear. To give you just a little more detail on the dispatch systems. So when we talk about dispatch, from the time that somebody calls 911, from the time they pick up the call, there's a voice recorder beyond that we control. They have to be, all those calls have to be recorded per compliancy. So we manage that. We manage backups of that. And then they step into the dispatching system where they send people off, see where the police officers are, all those things. There's a system that ties the cars back to the servers at the PD. There's other systems that do call outs if they need to move stuff over to fire and ask for more resources there. Every single one of those little interconnections all flows through IT. So it's not just a one big system we have to keep running. It's more like 30 or 40 systems that all have to be running and all being have to be running with interoperability between them at the same time. So quite complex. So the first year I was able to gather statistics for uptime. That was the year that the year after I started, I was able to get the full year. We were about 96.8% uptime. And when I use this uptime number, that means any time that wasn't planned for downtime. So we do routine maintenance and we say we're going to be down for an hour. We make the accommodations. We don't count that as downtime. So this is time that was not planned for. So in 2024, that number was 96.8%, which leaves us at 6 days that year that dispatch was inoperable. Last year, 2025, we got that to 99.9%, which is 9 hours of unexpected downtime. This year, we're just going, I'm doing a prediction so far. Hopefully things will improve. We'll get back to 99.9, but up to this point, we're looking, if things continue the way they are, at 99.8%. And that's due to a few factors. We had a very heavy automated attack performed against the police station, against the firewalls that protect the network there. No intrusions were made, but they made it so that the networks that they were attached to were inoperable. So a cybersecurity, the beginnings of a cybersecurity attack. And that came similar times that other people were seeing an uptick in response from Iran. So anything with a .gov on the end of it has been getting hit a lot harder. So we put things in to mitigate that. That also includes, we were down for 45 minutes when we had a catastrophic failure of the battery backup unit at the public dispatch building, and our public safety building, I'm sorry. That battery backup unit runs all of the server infrastructure there as well as the dispatch center itself. And we had it's unprecedented in my career failure that the system would die completely and leave you in a spot where you have no power. So first for me. And with that being said, we lost all power to dispatch and all power to our data center, and we could not bypass the batteries to get power around. So it took us 45 minutes to unplug, find other plugs, and get stuff up and running. But we were back up in about 45 minutes. So that contributes to the 17 hours of projected downtime for this year. And if I could give you a frame of reference from the outside world, Microsoft's goal for Office 365, so that's all your email, everything that's online with Microsoft, all their cloud services, they shoot for 99.8% uptime. So we we shoot to keep ours there or just a little bit better at 99.9. You can switch it. Thank you. So we are lean on the staff side. I requested the last 2 years for an additional employee. We're looking for a low-level employee, a help desk person, someone who could take in the calls, triage, handle as many of them as they can, but also to be our communications hub and distribute tickets outside of that. We get an average of 22 tickets a day. Approximately 7 of those are very quick, under 30-minute tickets, a password reset, a quick email question, things like that. But generally, it leaves us about 15 tickets a day requiring a concerted effort. So I would say over an hour or two. And then those start to back up, right? So that is all on top of any project work or any new installations that we're going to do, or any initiatives in other departments. So say we have water and sewers looking to do a new paging system. They've been put off 2 or 3 times. We've got around to getting everything set up, but just due to the nature of not enough time, departments have to start to wait, and that's unfortunate. We try to get to everything as quick as we can, but I re-gave you the totals on the side there, but all the numbers in color there are a breakdown of what each person is expected to handle. And again, that's shifted a little bit more for people. Carmen, for instance, might handle more of the user side, where I might handle more of the server side. Jason might do more applications. But the industry standard for users per in a not-for-profit, I've got very sparse information on municipalities, which really skewed the numbers up. So to get a real number, I went with not-for-profits around the same size. Generally, we want to look for 30 to 40 users per IT person, and that's just a general. And that wouldn't include a director role, but my role is kind of a hybrid. I'm a technical director, I guess, so I fix stuff and try and do all this stuff too. So it's a pretty heavy workload. And again, I put it up there just so you know that the request is there. I know that this budget year is very tight, so I understand that. We really do the best we can with what we have. You can switch it. So we've shifted a bit on some of our strategies. The biggest thing where we've seen continued reduction in cost is standardizing the environment. So instead of having each department go out and buy 1 or 2 Adobe licenses for their users and paying the highest price, we pulled that all back together. We went out and we were able to negotiate for, say, 30 users. We were able to get a much better price than they were getting singly. It's not extraordinary amounts of money, but it adds up. And it also gives us access to give the tools to more people who need them without spending more money. The use of those sort of tools is just increasing as people are more savvy, and the requirements go up for what they're doing for their jobs. Retiring, so not continuing to pay licensing on tools that we don't use or are underutilized. So anything that we said, yeah, it's kind of nice, we could use it again, we went through and we cut. So if it's not absolutely 100%, because the licensing costs go up across the board. So if we're just carrying something that's not doing much for us, we eliminated all that. We've switched off of not just replacing computers, servers, switches, things like that, based solely on age. I try to work off of a timeline, general timeline. So when I first started, my first year here, we put in a 5-year computer replacement plan that would allow us to replace 20% of the computers every year, every 5 years, whole new set. That because of cuts in the previous years, that's sort of gotten pushed. So we're going at it from a different perspective. We're going after machines not just because they're old, but because they're old and they're at risk. So I can give you an example. Windows 10 discontinued support. So all of those machines no longer get patches, no longer get updates. So that means a few things. So they become a higher vulnerability for malicious software. The longer the software is out there unpatched, they look for holes, and once they find them and they know that they're not fixing the holes, they really go after them. So they become a very risky proposition of that. So that's reflected sort of in my request for the computer dollars you'll see later. And again, we have eliminated all external consulting IT help. So all IT for the town is done internally. And again, that would push us towards another person at some point when finances hopefully look a little different. You can switch. Thank you, sir. So here's some that are already underway for saving money. The copier line in the budget, it tends to creep up just a little bit every year, and that's as we add copiers in different places. Each one of those copiers that we put in place even within the first year, usually within the first 6 months, is saving the town money. So generally when we put in a copier, there's one slated to go in the public safety building upstairs for the fire department, ambulance, IT. It's just a smaller unit, doesn't cost us too much on our budget, but that will eliminate 4 very large, very expensive printers that, the toners cost $700 every time they need to be replaced, and we're paying pennies on a dollar for that in a copier. So it's sometimes deceptive, the copier costs seem to keep going up, but that money's being eliminated from being spent in other departments' budgets. Again, I talked about the centralized licensing. We do that for other things. We're looking at combining town and public safety Microsoft licensing at this point to hopefully get us into a better buying position as those numbers keep going up. We do pursue grants. I have 2 or 3 grants right now. One is a cybersecurity grant that are getting towards the final stages, but the state funded fiber grant that we went for, we got approved initially for about $240,000. That number is now about $760,000. And thankfully, since one of the last budget meetings we had this year, we've actually broken ground. So the overall plan for that fiber build out is that the public safety building with its data center there is best equipped to handle the town's information center, the data center. So we have some servers here, we have one at community center. That'll all be consolidated to the public safety building. All the other buildings in town, 13 buildings, will eventually, within this grant, be tied directly back to the public safety building. So the initial stage, this is sort of their getting up and running. The public safety building will be first. Station 2 will come online sort of the same time. So for Station 2, it's not a very big join. It was close. They wanted to use it as a test. But right off the bat, we eliminate a firewall from Station 2 that has to be updated and we pay support on, and we eliminate an internet connection. So you can see as we go through the town at some of these bigger buildings, so when Town Hall gets linked there, we eliminate 3 internet connections that we have here. We eliminate 2 firewalls that we have here. All these costs come way down. So we're managing, right now I believe we manage about 31 internet connections for the town. And in the end, ideally we'll be managing 3, all at the public safety building, 3 to 4. So again, there'll be an increase in spending at internet in one building, but it'll be for all the buildings. And it'll also bring us down to, from a security standpoint, each one of those buildings is an ingress and egress point. So that's where attackers will come to hit us. So now they have,
they have 13 chances to go and try and do that, and hopefully, they see that we missed a patch somewhere or didn't do an update. That'll consolidate that all to one, so our exposure drops dramatically. So sort of just a reiteration of what I was saying. So we want to keep police and dispatch systems up, focus on cybersecurity, focus on protecting the endpoint units, the PCs, the people, and keeping on top of our licensing and renewals, and the timing of renewals. So a lot of what we're finding when we're making large purchases is the same that you find in a lot of sales. So if you can get end of the year pricing, December type pricing on things and not have to get the pricing in July. So we've done some shifting around with that. It's reflected in some of the numbers where we shifted a few of our new contracts, and that's why they're a little bit more expensive. So for some things we paid for like a year and 4 months to get us so that we were buying again at the end of December for more optimal pricing. And we've seen that on some of the larger contracts be like a 30 to 40% difference for that end of the year. So again, any place that we can kind of squeeze around, we're trying to get money back here. And again, with the workload that we have, there's not going to be any nice to haves, and there's really not going to be any non-critical updates at this point. This is a little bit more information on the 5-year computer replacement plan. We're in year 3 of the 5-year computer replacement plan. The last 2 years, that number was trimmed back a little bit due to financial constraints. During that time, we've seen a recent explosion in the costs of hardware, and it's almost directly tied to the new AI data centers that are popping up around. So next time you go to shop for a computer, you'll likely see that it's much more expensive than your last one. So where we were replacing a machine set up for around $1,200, I got requoted today that will expire in April at $1,800. So the $2,200 I'm estimating will be the cost by the time we go to start purchasing in July. So what it means to put off these computer replacements, we have, for the last 3 years, we have stretched every machine. Like, that machine's close enough, let's upgrade it a little bit, let's clean it up, we'll make it happen, we'll refurb it. And we've done that. We've done that full round of any machine that could be saved has been saved, and we're dragging the life out that we can get. But they do become a problem. They become a problem for IT. The older the machines get, we spend more time troubleshooting problems. People spend more time waiting for their computers to do the basic things that they're supposed to be doing. It really does add up. It's the number one frustration complaint I get around town is, when their machines are getting old and it's slow and they feel like they can't get their job done, it's very frustrating. So we did put in money this year, some additional money into the capital to kind of catch us up. It won't quite get us on track, but I think if we can catch up this year and are realistic in the next 2 or 3 years, I think we'll be maybe on a 6-year replacement plan, but I think we'll be much closer to where we need to be. And again, replacing those things on a predictable timeline is much cheaper, because we can, instead of ordering one machine for $2,800, we can order 20 of them, hopefully for $2,200. So a lot of little things that go to keep the costs down. And this is just, just to highlight a few of the things if we have, if we're continue to defer things. We're already seeing longer times for support issues and projects. We added Jason to the department a year and a half ago, I believe, and it was immediately apparent that he came in, and once he was up to date, he was already swamped. I had him booked for 6 months before he even, got it logged into his computer. So the projects and the initiatives around town. So there's IT projects that need to be completed to keep us safe and keep us up to date. But every department that comes around and wants to do an initiative, they need IT support for 90% of those initiatives, whether it be scanning documents in land use or the AI integration of the garbage trucks that do the recycling. They need to all talk back. There's a payloader over there that needs internet connection so they can find out how much dirt they're scooping, salt they're scooping in the winter, when we have salt. But yeah, everything's tied together in that way. So how this affects the town is police and dispatch, any sort of failure there, I feel is the greatest failure. We strive very hard to be on top of all IT issues over there. That often comes at the sacrifice of other town departments. So if they're taking up 50% of our resources while only being 30 or 40 people, it doesn't leave much bandwidth for the rest of the town. And of course, we don't want it to get to the residents that things aren't happening in a timely manner. Okay. So we've tried to put forth a disciplined IT budget that can achieve all of our goals here. Public safety, maintain core operations, and keep working towards cybersecurity and standardization without running over. We didn't ask, we're not asked for desks or carpet or remodeling. Just the stuff we need to do to move forward. So, and I've highlighted some of the specific budget lines that may have popped out at you, but I'll open it up to you all for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate you making the presentation very thorough. Maybe one question I have about AI. Obviously, it's increasingly a part of all of our lives all the time. How much do you find town employees using AI to get their work done over the course of the day, and how much do you see it growing, and what kind of support do you think you need to give them?
So certainly we've seen an increase in requests. So the way that we have set up access to, under our Microsoft 365, we do have access to their AI agent. There's a lot of security risk with that, so we have it tightened down pretty well. So probably at this point, I'm probably getting 2 or 3 requests a week for people asking to have access to the AI technologies. And for in town, what I'm seeing is, and the way that I use it as well, is as a tool. So this is used, I'm seeing people use it to, sort of expedite tasks that may have taken them longer otherwise. I will admit that all of my successful grants have been very heavily co-authored by AI. They seem to go through pretty well, so I do it that way. But for me, in the use in town that I've seen, it really has been a time saver for the people who are utilizing it. But we do review the requests case by case because there's ways that information can leak out in ways that you weren't expecting.
So it sounds like there's increasing use. Mm-hmm. With what you have now in the budget, you can support it.
Correct.
And doesn't sound like it's causing big server load problems.
No, and the nice thing about AI is the load is put somewhere else. So as long as the machines here are capable of running the agents and the utilities, which for the most part are the people who need it have access to it if they feel fit.
Great. Okay. Thanks. Other questions? Lauren, you want to go?
Sure. Thank you for your very detailed presentation. I'm assuming that there probably isn't a possibility of this, but in regard to copiers that we're replacing or getting rid of and computers, those parts aren't usable, I'm assuming.
So for the most part, the copiers, they're on lease. So what we did to really stave off that huge price increases is the most copier maintenance, once your lease is up, they want you to replace that machine immediately and go from there. We've steered away from that. We have enough copiers displayed around town and places in town that when the copier leases run out, we go by page count. And we ask the, look at the professionals and say, is it 1 million pages, 100,000 pages? When is it really old? And we've done it that way. So we've not retired. We have plenty of copiers that are 7 or 8 years old. So at end of lease, we keep them till they're no longer feasible to be functioning. And on the computer side, the way we use computers, they're pretty well used up when we're done. But they get e-recycled, data destroys.
And then as far as on the other IT services, some of our licensing agreements, I'm just noticing there's been price increases. I'm
Sure.
assuming those are fixed, there's no room.
Well, some of them are fixed. They just go up a certain percentage every year. I can highlight a few of the numbers if that would help. So I pulled out a few. So our antivirus software, we went from a very basic and underpowered antivirus software that was actually just an updated version from 2002. So it really was not capable of catching very much. So through a state partnership program with SEN, we were able to procure a $90,000 a year package for about $10,000, and that's just through the partnership. And that package actually includes a level where if they see an alert come through, it actually goes to a knock there. So they see the alert and they say, "Oh, you got to do something." If I missed it at 3 o'clock on Sunday, that goes to a call chain and it'll call everybody on the list. So it's the first time we've had a true outside set of eyes on things for us. So it's another way that we can catch things. And then again, our anti-spam, very basic, and we were finding through our day-to-day usage and our spam numbers that that was our greatest weakness point. We were getting a lot of spam, and we were having a lot of end users within town falling for the spam, a lot more than we would have liked. So we put a heavy focus on user training. I just pulled the latest report. We do it every quarter. Sometimes we'll send out a smaller one in between, like a little refresher. But we have about 92% compliance on our last training, so people are doing it, they're engaged. And it's very intuitive. There's a lot of AI built into it, so if someone does very poorly on a test, they might get an extra test or a retest, but it's not pushy. But the compliance has been great, and that mixed with our anti-spam, we were generally getting about 300 messages a day through that were legitimate spam that were making it to people's mailboxes. That number's down to about 18 now with this new version. And what we were able to add with that as well, since we know that users are our primary concern, is we scan mail outbound now. So if I write an email to Kevin with a bunch of financial details and I go to copy Dan, but for some reason that Dan is my friend Dan from outside of work, it'll pop up and say, "You don't usually send this type of information to this contact." So it does some analysis of things on the way out, which is caught. I think we've had 182 interceptions where the user was prompted that did they want to send this, and I believe the number was 140 said no, I didn't intend to send it. So that's 140 messages that weren't intended to go out that were stopped by that. So it was much more effective than I had thought it would be. And another big increase is the Office 365 licensing. That again, that goes up about 10 to 12%. I think I stated earlier, we're trying to look at combining. PD has their own instance of that, and the rest of town has an instance. We're looking at combining that to hopefully bring the overall numbers down. But that also reflects an increase of users as well. Another addition that wasn't here is we currently have mobile device management. Again, another security vector. The phones connect back for email and files and all sorts of things. Right now, the majority of phones in town and devices in town are Apple, that are those mobile devices. So we have coverage on those now. This is to add coverage for non-Apple devices, so Android, that sort of thing. So it's reflective of that number is reflective of how many of those we have. So it's just per unit. And that gives us the ability to secure somebody's phone remotely. If the phone's lost or stolen, we can remotely wipe it. It gives us a lot more control over something, and so data's just not wandering. Our data's not just wandering around out there.
All set. Thank you.
Kim?
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. Could you help me understand how you define a network? Because I would think that having 32 networks for a town that has 18,000 citizens is a little over the top. So maybe just start with how you define a network.
So each building will have their own network by default. They'll have to have their own network space, and then those networks will connect out and connect to each other in various ways. So each of the buildings will have a network. But then if you get into like the public safety building, there's a network for the collect database system. So that's how they go out and look up license plate and do background checks. They are on their own dedicated network. There are 3 other state networks that are dedicated over there as well. Interconnect networks for next-gen and federal database lookups. So those will all be separate networks. All of our servers, they will live on their own network, so they're isolated from the workstations in case something gets infected. So a lot of it's technological breakdown and logical separation of duties. So we put all of our management onto one network. And again, most of these networks at this point continue across town. So the server network here is the same as the server network over at PD. They share so that they can talk in real time, but the other networks can't get to that. The state system for registrar of voters, they have their own network that we have to tie into. Actually, 4 networks that we have to tie into for that. And those networks have to be carried from community center to here. So there's some complicated setup. Radio network.
So are you defining that as like a VLAN, a virtual local area network?
So
are
many
you
of
talking
them
about physical IP addresses? Because there's different ways to look at this.
There is.
32 sounds excessive unless
I do
they're
it based off
VLANs.
I do this off any sort of separate IP scheme, right? So some of those are VLANs. There's probably a good portion, probably 2/3 of those are VLANs. But each being a VLAN, if it was a physical switch separation or a logical one with the VLAN, you're still responsible for managing all the traffic between them. So a virtual network, that could have the server sitting next to another server, and if I want them to talk, there's firewall rules and policies, and they all have to be gone through to get those 2 to talk, even though they're sitting on the same physical switch. So I count them, each one as networks that aren't freely, that can't freely talk to each other. Because if you go for all of our VLANs, we probably use around 110 VLANs.
Okay. So you listed that we have in town over 120 applications. So I guess I'd like to understand how you count applications, because usually applications, at least as I've come to understand them, are counted as end user software solutions versus a utility that IT might use to maintain the network, to maintain storage, to maintain the technical environment. So how do you get to 120 apps? Because we only have 250 employees.
So, and that number doesn't include IT utilities. So IT utilities would be separate from that. I guess police department would be a good example. Every computer that gets rolled out at the police department, they have to have access to next-gen, they have to have access to the training software, they have to have access to MDT monitoring software, the automatic vehicle locator software. Over there, it's skewed much higher than anywhere in town. Each one of those users probably interacts with about 20 to 25 applications unique to the police department. Collect for looking up license plate. Registering fingerprints is a whole nother application that they have to use. They're very siloed in those. On this side, it would be, the tax department has their software. If you go to town clerk, they have a software that they use, but they also have to connect to the state software for voting, and that's actually 3 separate applications. They just had to learn a new one. So they add up pretty quickly.
Okay, and you mentioned you have 45 servers
Correct.
for 120 applications, so that's 3 apps per server. What is your ratio of physical servers to virtual servers?
So currently we have 14 physical servers.
14?
Mhm.
And do you have stats for your virtual environment? Processing, utilization?
Sure.
I'm sure you have a storage area network with disk space utilization. Like, can we get some information on
Sure,
that?
I can tell you specifically, I'd have to read, I did this for the town hall, in my second year, my first budget, we requested the servers be replaced here, so I went and did the workload analysis and all of that. So I just completed that for the PD because we're looking in capital to replace those machines. So on the storage end, PD is in a safe spot, around 75 to 80% of storage utilized, but they don't grow exponentially. It grows at a pretty predictable rate, so we know that that'll be okay for a little while longer. As far as CPU and memory utilization, they surpass 90% there. So that's when we start really looking at replacement. You take the time, how long they've been around, what's their utilization, and that's how we come to decide
Okay,
replacement.
just a few more comments or questions.
Sure.
So I know it sounds very positive for the town for you to remove all technical assistance, not have any consulting dollars. I would like to go on record saying that that is really unwise, because what you've done is you've set yourself up with a network of 32 networks with no penetration testing being done by any outside third party. I think,
We do. We have.
but you just said you didn't have any dollars.
No paid. We use the National Guard team does all of our intrusion detection, all of our intrusions. So they come in, they do a physical, and then they do a remote. They scan all of our networks. They did the same thing for water and sewer as well on the SCADA side. So we went through all those assessments,
Okay.
and that's yearly.
And they're well known for their ability to do
it's
penetration testing?
Yeah, it's their cyber response team. So they work with the state security. The state uses them for their auditing. Not that they don't use third-party auditors as well. And in another reference to that, we do have technology partners that we could call. I have agreements with people, so if there was ever an emergency or one of us was not here, that we could call. But we don't have any money set aside. That was one of the things that was cut. I mean, I left a little bit in because we try to do it all in-house.
Okay. How many non-Apple devices do you have under the mobile device management?
I'd have to get you a number. I believe it's around 28, plus or minus.
Okay. And can you share what's driving the cable parts and repairs from going from $3,350 to $8,200?
So that sort of becomes a catch-all, and we find ourselves pulling money from other places. So that's for when things fail kind of outside of the plan and outside of a computer replacement. So if I need to order hard drives, or if we're going to try and save an old machine and order more memory, monitors, keyboards, mice, webcams, things like that, we're always falling short in that arena. So I did a realistic evaluation of what that was, and I think from last year, we consolidated another sort of catch-all line, and overall we reduced it, but this number is increased, but the overall number was decreased from last year. Is that right, Kev? We had 2 lines for it last year? I'd have to look
I
back.
remember a lot of numbers.
Yeah, I know.
I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take any more time, but I think for the other IT services, there were a number of line items in your report that had pretty significant increases. I think it would be helpful if those could be
Sure.
explained. You don't have to do it right now, maybe as a written
I can do
summary.
that. One in particular that I'll just mention, because it comes up quite a bit, is the telephone line, and a lot of that is absorbing other departments' telephones under IT. So our number goes up, but you should see those numbers disappear from the other budgets. I think that's the biggest one in that section. But I can go through and give a more detailed write-up if that helps.
Okay, and then I know you mentioned you were doing a lot of internet consolidation. I just would hope the town would accelerate that, because that just continues to add risk from a penetration standpoint.
It's a huge risk and it's a huge cost.
Yeah, thank you for your report. I have no further questions.
Sandra?
I just want to thank you for all of the technical information that educated me this evening, and for your presentation on the budget. And I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Great. Rich?
Oh, okay. Again, thanks for the presentation and some of the explanations and the efforts to work through consolidation and ultimate cost savings and cybersecurity. You mentioned consolidation in town with the public safety, and I know that's a big effort. In terms of the schools, they have a pretty hefty IT footprint, at least in terms of pieces of equipment and applications and software packages. Have they ever consulted with you and worked with you to try to help?
So we've in the past they've been fairly siloed. In this past year, I have met with the Board of Ed and we've had discussions about perhaps using they have a higher purchasing power for laptops and desktops and things, about using their contract just to do some of our purchasing. If they can get some better pricing, we'll use their greater leverage. So there's been talks about that, but there's not much interconnect between the Board of Ed IT and town IT.
Oh, okay. Let's see. In terms of the computing needs in town, for all the employees with laptops or personal computers, do you think all of those needs are warranted, or could they move to different devices? I don't know if some departments, most of their stuff is just utilizing email, or what the utilization of the services are.
Right. So I haven't done an analysis, department by department, user by user. There would certainly be people in town that would likely could get away with a lower end device, that sort of thing. Overall, everybody needs a computer at some point. And keeping things standardized means that when people come and go, we're not shifting computers around based on this person's a heavy user, this person's a light user. It's just more standardized than that. And what we find when we source lower end computers, we've tried a few times, is the longevity just isn't there. We have to hit a certain point. We need certain levels of memory, certain levels of processor, and certain levels of warranty, and that all drives the cost up a very specific amount. So we cover all the machines that we get in for 3 years fully, so if anything happens, and then after that we're on the hope and pray method.
Okay.
But it's pretty industry standard. Generally you warranty for the first 3, because that's where before it starts to get astronomical for warranty. So we warranty for the first 3 and then keep them as long as they last.
Okay. And then with the units that the public safety employees use, are they on the same type of life cycle that you have for the town computers?
They're a little more varied. If you're talking about the MDTs in the car, their life cycle is much longer. They're much more specific built, and they're much more expensive. So they're not on a 5-year plan. They're essentially on a keep them as long as we can.
Yeah.
There's money this year in to replace, actually it's to replace 2 units, and it's about $16,000. And that's not to put into a new car, that's just taking one that's old and putting a new one in.
Right.
As far as the workstations within the building, they're included in that same 5-year plan. So,
Oh, okay. So it could be conceivable for organizations that have a shorter than 5-year plan could probably move out with a little bit of an extension to get some cost savings.
yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
When you hit the 5-year, if you go from a 3-year warranty to a 5-year, I think it adds, like I know on these $2,200 machines, I believe the option was around $499. So it starts to get into that, well, do I just put that into a different machine? But the 3 years is always pretty viable.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks. We're up to you, Barry, if you want to have any questions.
Yep, I just have, thanks for your presentation. I'm going to looking at the, I've been watching the cash capital part of the town budget. And I know that gets pretty complicated between cash capital and the capital improvement projects and how those are basically spread over 1, 3, and 5 years. But, and I know you don't have this information with you right now, but I'm wondering if you could give us the number of projects, the number of cash capital improvements that are being allocated for this budget year from IT that would be included in the cash capital for this year. Does that make sense, Kevin, what I'm saying?
I see the list, but what's the question, I guess?
So that would be like, when we went over the other day, we had the A categories.
Yep.
And which of those A categories apply to IT that are going to become part of the cash capital this year? And that's just, what I'm interested in, if you could just...
So Barry, the ABC, the prioritization that we were doing in the last meeting, that was for the CIP for years 2 through 5. So attached here is the current year capital that we kept. So I think you were thinking of the CIP, the 5-year CIP, if I'm mistaken?
The cash capital this year has a component of capital improvement projects?
Yep.
Yes or no?
Yes, so yeah.
Okay, so for those,
Do we lose him completely when we switch? Oh, switch us back then, I didn't know that. I thought we were here.
okay?
Sorry, Barry.
That's all.
I
If you
know we
could
switched out.
you give us that. Okay, thank you very much. That's it. And thanks again for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Barry, if I didn't answer your question, I'll get to it in an email, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions for Dan? Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you, Kevin.
I didn't know what the,
I didn't need it.
yeah.
That's wild.
Sorry about that, Barry.
Maybe our IT director can help us sort that out.
As I said, I think we can fix that.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Our final item of new business is the capital projects budget review. Kevin, are you managing that?
So that was just on all the agendas for IT and fire department, but we can go over all of it if we'd like. That was it was been on all the agendas just so the departments that present can discuss that.
Does anybody have any specific questions on capital projects tonight, or as we walk into budget deliberations beginning tomorrow, you want to tackle that then?
Always
Tackle that
put
then.
off to tomorrow.
What you
so
could
you
do
don't,
today.
So you don't have to do it today.
All right, that's a very reasonable approach. I like it. All right. Next up on our agenda is public discussion. Is there any public discussion? Are there any board comments tonight?
Yes, Scott.
Rich?
Yeah, I just want to remind the board that this year we did not have every department present to us, which was a blessing, but it can also be a curse. that we did try to go for the big hitters to present, but there could be nuggets in some of the other budgets. And as we enter deliberations, I want us to make sure that we look at the full budget book and not just who presented.
Wise words, thank you. Yeah, so tomorrow we will start with Board of Education, get as far as we can, and then move to the town budget after. So please take an opportunity over the next 24 hours or 22 hours now to take a look at some of the numbers that have been proposed to us and come with your ideas and suggestions for what things we need to adjust.
Could I just ask, and I apologize if this is in email or it's somewhere out in the world, but do we have, for current fiscal year, spend through February, so that we could kind of see like what the actual spend is through X number of months in comparison to what the fiscal 27 budget request is? Because it would be nice to know if people, you know, maybe it's an 8% increase over current budget, but maybe they've only spent 20% of the current budget this year. I think I would love to be able to have that information available, if possible, to understand current spend versus request. But I don't know if that takes a lot of work or it already exists. And for Board of Ed, is that possible?
I'll email Mariana about that,
Okay.
but I don't have access to their system.
I think it would just be good to see what the burn rate looks like this year, to know if the budget request is valid or not.
And to add to that, the amount of the fund balance that we had budgeted last year and how much we've used or anticipate using before the next budget year starts.
You good with that, Kevin?
I am, yep. So last year was about $500,000. This year, I'll look at the revenues here. We are, because really essentially we don't do a balanced budget, so we're budgeting $1 million more of expenditures than revenues, right? That's what makes the fund balance is 30%. So year-to-date budget versus actuals, fund balance report. Is there anything else we want to dive in for tomorrow? I'll send that out tonight for you guys.
Oh, please don't do it tonight. I would feel bad.
All right, any other board comments? Anybody want to move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous, we adjourn.
Well, that was an aye.
Thank you.